Have a listen to this. Have a listen to this.
Interest rates are higher. I know people don't like that, but you should be welcoming a stronger economy.
And maybe a deal has a point about the machinery of capitalism being oiled with the blood of the worker.
The United States is a country that has always paid all of its bills.
Lannister always pays his debts.
Don't let the bastards get you.
Hello and welcome back to Comedian versus Economist. My name's Adam and we're joined as always by my little older brother and real life economist, Thomas. Hi, Thomas.
Yeah, g'day, Adam. How you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. As always on the show, we're looking at charts. If you want to follow along, you'll find them on Facebook and Instagram at CVE Podcast, as well as the CVE page on the Equity Mates website, equitymates.com/CVE. Massive show, Thomas, coming up, of course, as always. We're feeling more confident than ever. Rate cuts, or has someone just been putting in the gym work in the winter and got their beach body ready for summer? We'll find out. Sydney has become a buyer's market. You can now pick up a renovated former public toilet just 80 k's out of the city for under $1 million. And October, dry July, have you ever considered a break from alcohol? I do sometimes, but just for short spells more often. It's like a fast break, and so I call it break fast. Breakfast. But first, the Reserve Bank of New Zealand cut rates by 50 bips. Of course, mocking an accent isn't racist if it's New Zealand or England. Thomas, what's going on with rate cuts?
Yeah. And the Reserve Bank of New Zealand cut by 50 pips. It was bigger than expected. This is the second cut out of the RBNZ. We got 25 bips in the month before, and then a bit of a recognition that they're behind the curve. Also, they said in their minutes that they thought that inflation was now within the target band. They've got a 1 to 3%, between 1 and 3%.
It seems a big target band, 1 to 3. Is it?
Pretty generous, yeah.
Like there's a long way to slip up before you're out of band. Like if you're sitting around 2.7 and something bad happens and you're like, whoa, we fell to 1.5. It's like, that's okay. It's still within target band.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also a bit reasonable. Like, I don't know. Is there a material difference to the economy with inflation running at 1.5% versus 2.5%?
Well, I think as an economist, Thomas, you'd be able to answer that question. I have no idea. Presume
much the same. I think the general idea is that stability and predictability matters more than the exact numbers.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So whatever your target band is, as long as you're sticking to it.
Yeah. Is that their first cut? So the US cut, and this is the RBNZ's first cut?
No, this is their second one.
Oh,
they cut by 25 last month, and then followed up with 50 now. So, and they're still a long way above what they reckon is neutral, and they're still 40 bips higher than where we are. Yeah. So still pretty high. Couldn't easily come down a long way from there.
Right.
Yeah, interesting. So we got when the Fed cut by 50 bips last month, they were calling that the bazooka rate hike. Yeah.
And the RBNZ, did we have a name for it? A pistol.
Bazooka? A pistol cut.
Sorry, we should stop mocking our friends across the ditch. Right, they don't have a name, obviously.
No. Interesting though that it's big. It's interesting also in the sense that the Fed, everyone was wondering if the Fed was going to give us another big 50 bips. But then a couple of data points last month, so non-farm payroll, so employment came in.
I love the non-farm payrolls. It's like with weird specification of who we're including. Like, do you drive a truck? Yeah. On a farm? No. All right, you're in.
Oh, yeah. No, you're not sure about that. But that came in quite a bit stronger than expected.
Right.
And then inflation came in stronger than expected too. Marcus went, ooh, okay, maybe we're not getting big
And is the
cuts.
Fed likely to do something with that though? I mean, surely, I don't know, I guess I always assume this is part of like a bigger plan, like a more strategic vision for the economy to kind of go, like if we're sort of building a new system or something, we're thinking like, you know, we've got a roadmap, we've got a strategy. They're like, bazooka. And now, like, what, they just see what happens, is see the fallout from the bazooka and then change and pivot. I guess maybe they do.
Yeah. That's called being data-driven.
Oh, yeah.
In the lingo.
Okay.
So yeah, responding to the data. I mean, what it means is inflation's hotter, jobs are holding up. I think the thing they were worried about with that big rate cut is that they were behind the cycle.
Right.
The economy was softening quicker than expected, and that they needed to get rates lower to catch up. But like, that data says that worry is not so much of a concern. Employment's holding up. Inflation's a bit hotter than you'd want it to be. So there's no rush to get rates lower.
Right. So we might not see, we might go the end of the year without another rate cut then. Might have just been a one-off just to...
Possibly. We might get 25 bips.
Right.
I mean, interestingly, there's a chart here on the terminal rate. So the market's sort of like, where is this cutting cycle going to end? A few weeks ago, that had official US rates at 2.7%. That's now jumped up to 3.3%. So everyone's saying like, oh, okay, maybe we're not getting as even the timing. Not only has the timing been pushed back, but now people are thinking we're not going to get as many rate cuts as we might have because the landing's looking a lot softer and better than we had anticipated.
Right.
Is the general vibe.
I've heard that before, though. We're going from soft landing to hard landing to no. I read no landing the other day. Apparently, we're not even going to have a landing now.
No. Yeah. Third year of bull market, just onwards and upwards.
Sounds like Jerome Powell might be shooting from the hip with his bazooka that he's got. Maybe he's got in cowboy mode. All right, Thomas, we got some consumer confidence data. We're feeling good. I'm feeling good. You feeling good?
Yeah, I'm feeling the vibe.
Good.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, we saw a big pickup in the Westpac consumer confidence data in the month.
What about other customers?
About 5%.
Customers of other banks. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, they do a consumer confidence survey, so a bit like your Roy Morgan surveys, getting out there and interviewing people. But big pickup, up 5% or so. Probably the biggest one in a few years, actually.
5% of what? Of confidence?
Oh, it's more of it's an index.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Like a happiness index.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
It's confidence.
Yeah. Confident. Yeah.
You won't find it in the basket of goods. Just know that we can measure your confidence. All right. Okay. Well, that's good.
But and that was driven by a big pickup in perception of current finances, sub-index.
That sounds risky. If the perception doesn't align with the reality of current finances, then like, are we all feeling good because we feel rich, or are we all feeling good because we are rich?
I think it's, yeah. Well, I don't know. That's a big question, isn't it?
Because I've gone out spending before and then realised that was probably a mistake and that we don't really have as much money as I thought we had to buy frivolous things during the Amazon Prime Day sales.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that's important. We should get to the bottom of that, whether we're just feeling it or whether we actually are doing better. But the perception of current finances index.
Yeah. I mean, for confidence, it's really a perception measure. Like, so it's consumers' perceptions of own finances versus a year ago.
Right.
So it's like, are you better off now than you were a year ago? Is sort of is the question.
Okay.
And then, so that was a big pickup in that. And that's sort of interesting because it's not entirely clear where that's coming from. Like, might be the tax cuts. People have digested that and they're feeling a bit better off. Might also be that largely the inflation pulse has passed through the system. So people are now just a bit like, oh yeah, okay, I'm not as panicked as I was a year ago. I'm feeling a bit better about stuff.
Okay. Yeah, cool. And is that just an Australian thing?
Yeah, generally. I mean, apart from China, they're down in the doldrums still.
Right.
But everywhere else has seen a sort of a pickup. The US has been the interesting standout in that everyone's there has been doing pretty good. Like, the Conference Board measure of consumer confidence has barely dipped at all.
Well, they're very positive people generally, the US.
Very positive.
Like, how's it going? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So good.
Yes. On a scale of fuck yeah, how do you rate your personal finances?
USA, USA. What? It's not a survey response. All right, let's take a break here. Grab a word from this week's sponsor. Hey, why don't you use the time while the ads are playing to do a review of Comedian versus Economist wherever you're listening to the podcast. That'd be much appreciated. Otherwise, we'll see you in a couple of minutes. Welcome back. You're on Comedian versus Economist. You can find all the charts we're looking at on today's show on Facebook and Instagram at CVE Podcast or on the website equitymates.com/CVE. Thomas, there's been an uptick in property listings. What's going on there?
Yeah, so we have a data point called total listings. So you're across, I think, the real estate domain. CoreLogic puts it together. I'm not sure exactly where they get it from. Or maybe from SQM. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But basically, it just tracks how many properties are for sale on the market at any given time.
Right.
And you have a total listings measure. And you also have a new listings measure. So every 30 days, how many new listings did you get? Mm-hmm. And this gives us our measure of supply. So when we're thinking about where property prices are going, restricted supply, reduced listings tends to point to stronger prices. And sort of the big story out of COVID through 2020 was that listings just fell off a cliff. Total listings fell off a cliff. So we were running around sort of 340,000 through most of the 2010s. And then after COVID, that dropped down to 220,000. So huge drop. And that's been one of the reasons why property prices have been so elevated or have been growing so vigorously.
I mean, it stands to reason. No one was like COVID hit, it might be a good time to sell. might have an open inspection. That'd be good. Let's invite 100 strangers through that was the challenge. So no surprises there. But right.
Yeah, but COVID finished and then listings never bounced back. So, got down to 220,000. It's only back to 240,000 now. So still 100,000 less than the averages of 10 years ago. Which is, it's always been a bit of a puzzle about why that had happened, but that's sort of what's happened.
Right.
But now listings are starting to pick up. There's a small upward trend, but we are seeing substantial lifts in listings in Sydney and Melbourne. So Sydney's up 7% over the year. Total number of listings is up 7%. Melbourne's up 8%. And Brisbane's up 4.2%. So that's interesting. And that also coincides because we know Melbourne prices are falling now.
Right.
Yeah, softly. Like I had a few months of falls now on the CoreLogic data. And then Sydney looks like it's about to fall or at least have a bit of a soft patch.
Yeah, right. Is that because of interest rates though as well? So interest rates kind of went up and did people, I don't know, were people starting to get into mortgage stress or something and starting to have to sell?
Yeah, I mean, you think that's got to make a difference at the margin, but we also there's data on distress listings.
Oh, right.
Which I think is a bit of a funny measure because it's like it just goes from the real estate ad and when it says like very motivated seller, if it has text like that, then it gets called a distressed listing.
Right. And deceased estates too, where they're obviously very distressed because they're dead. It's a heavily distressed person.
Heavily distressed. Yeah, I don't think that's right.
We'll check it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Back check that one. But the distressed listings hasn't picked up. Mortgage arrears haven't really picked up either. So the lift in interest rates probably is making a difference at the margin, but it's not a huge part of this story.
Right.
So I think it's probably more just affordability constraints, people sort of just running out of money.
Yeah.
And I mean, and prices have been up a stupid amount. So it's like they can't go up forever without eating into people's income.
True. And looking at some of the other states here, you got Adelaide at minus 12.5%, Perth minus 14.5%, Darwin minus 24.7% from the same time last year in terms of listings. People, I guess it's the end of the dry season now in Darwin, so people will start wanting to get out. But is that significant too? Like the decline in the number of listings? Yeah,
I mean, that's why Adelaide and Perth have really been pumping along this year and should keep pumping along on that basis. What's interesting there is that it's up 4% in Brisbane. So Brisbane has also had a super strong run and it's sort of been keeping pace with Perth. But it's probably on that measure, you think Brisbane's probably the price growth is probably going to soften going forward. But Perth is going to keep pumping along.
Yeah, right.
On that measure.
Good one. All right, Thomas, finally on the show, a lot of people would be familiar with Dry July and other months. October is one I've heard of. Sober October. What's going on?
Sober October. I've never heard. Have you heard? I've heard of Dry July, but I saw in American data they're talking about Dry January.
Oh yeah, Dry January doesn't have much of a ring to it,
doesn't it? Oh, it's the dumbest name ever. And then also Sober October. Which also I think, do you need 2 months? Like really kind of, shouldn't you just pick one and go for it? If you're trying to build a campaign, like Dry July.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah. And yeah, like you've got, like my kids were looking at like Amelie's birthday's coming up and she's looking at like what other days, International Day of whatever on October 29th. There's like 100 of them. And then you got International Week of, I don't know, left-handers on this week. And so you'd think, yeah, for the campaign around sobriety, you'd think you'd also need like not just 1 month. Like we'd all get together and agree that it was October and not Dry July.
Yeah, yeah.
Or don't, and also there's also Sept Remember, which is the where you just back off your alcohol a little bit to see if you can just remember each day. It's not one. I just made that up. All right. Anyway, why are we talking about this?
Well, I just saw some interesting data out of Civic Science, which is like I think a bit like our Roy Morgan here in Australia, do like consumer surveys. But what they've found is that there's been a substantial lift in the people who are sober curious.
Ooh, dry curious.
Dry curious. Yeah, dry curious.
Right.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So about 20% of adults back in 2020 were interested in or dry curious. That's now up to 40%. So saying there's been a substantial shift in consumer preferences around alcohol.
Wow. Well, that sounds. I can relate. Like people who knew me in my 20s would know that I very much enjoyed a drink. People who know me now would know that I drink a lot of non-alcoholic alcohol type drinks, like non-alcoholic beer. And I've just started drinking, Thomas, non-alcoholic red wine. So,
that's great.
It's absolute piss. But I did actually do, Anna and I both went completely alcohol free for September, and I just continued on now into October. And other than last weekend when the kids both had a sleepover and we went out for dinner and we had a glass of red, I've been alcohol free for now a month and a half, 2 months. And I attribute it to alcohol free beers, and in particular alcohol free beers. I've become quite the connoisseur of alcohol free beers. Shout out to Brewdog, quite a good beer, the best alcohol free beer I think I've had.
Can they send us a carton or something with some sponsorship?
they
or we just
sure
giving out
send me one.
free shout outs.
No, I just found it the other day. Well, because a lot of these things, right, a lot of the alcohol free options, like the case in point is the red wine. Absolutely terrible. Like it's a bit like no one enjoys a nicotine patch, I'm sure, but you kind of still get the same enjoyment of sitting down at the end of the day and having a wine glass and drinking what looks like red wine, even though it's not great, but it's sort of grape juicy and it's all right. And you just kind of, I've got used to it. I committed to it and I'm like, no, this is all right. I can still enjoy a glass of red wine sort of stuff. So between now my alcohol-free red wine and alcohol-free beers, I'm alcohol-free, which is good. I'm feeling good.
Okay.
So I think there is a real trend. There's an uptick.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that surveyed adults are saying if you're dry curious, what are you going to replace alcohol with for the month? And for younger people and baby boomers, it was soft drinks. But for Gen Z, it was cannabis.
Yep.
So millennials, which is our generation, millennials and
millennials. So that right. To each their own, right? Like I don't think we could endorse it on the show. I don't know. I guess it depends on your reasons for wanting to go alcohol free. Like everyone's got lots of different reasons for I mean, kava's the other one. People sing the praises of kava. We're in Fiji. I don't know if you've ever had kava. It's like it's a plant-based thing that's got some weird properties about it too. But people say that's so much better than alcohol because you don't have a hangover. But I don't know. It still gives you like a bit of a buzz or a chill or whatever. So that's interesting. You can't get it at Woolies, which is my requirement for substitutes. As a 40-something man professional with a family, I can't be ducking down to meet someone at the jetty to do a deal. It's much easier if I can add it to the shopping list.
On the app.
But again, to each their own. I remember that when I was doing stand-up, there was just on the flip side of this like everyone's going alcohol free. I remember talking to the club promoter here, Craig, and he was like people were like, oh, we're doing Dry July. How good is that? You know, everyone's pumped. And he's like, oh, I hate it. I was like, what? How can you be against Dry July? He's like, I run a comedy club. And we need audiences to come in, and a lot of the this would apply to anyone in hospitality or whatever. Audiences come in, we make a lot of the money that we make from running the nights over the bar. And when everyone's coming in and just ordering water, it's tough.
Yeah.
Not only was it tough for the promoter, it was tough for every comic who had to get up and perform to a straight sober crowd. It was just like,
we're all grumpy.
This guy isn't that funny. Yeah. That's what I'm blaming it on anyway. That's why they didn't laugh. Yeah. They were all too sober. All right, we better leave it there. Look, thanks so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate your support. Because of your support, in fact, we found out the other day that we are top 20 on the Spotify business charts, the business charts. So that's exciting. And we couldn't do it without you. So really very much appreciate it. But until we do another episode of Comedian versus Economist, which will be next week, it is bye for now.
Comedian vs Economist is a product of Equity Mates Media. All information in this podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional finance, legal, or tax advice. The hosts of Comedian vs Economist are not financial professionals and are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decisions, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from a podcast. For more information, head to the disclaimer page on the Equity Mates website where you can find ASIC resources and find a registered financial professional near you. In the spirit of reconciliation, Equity Mates Media and the hosts of Comedian vs Economist acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.